all set. Go ahead.
Thank you so much. Good evening and welcome to the July 8th, 2024 meeting of the Barnstable Planning Board here at Barnstable Town Hall. We're at 367 Main Street, Hyannis, Mass. in the James H. Crocker Jr. Hearing Room on the second floor, and it is 7:05 p.m. The meeting notice has been previously filed with the town clerk in accordance with Mass General Law. All application materials may be accessed through the Planning Board website or by contacting Karen Pina at karen.pina@town.barnstable.ma.us or calling 508-862-4064. Notice of recording: the meeting will be televised live via Xfinity Channel 8 or High Definition Channel 1072. It may also be accessed via the Government Access Live stream on the Town of Barnstable website. That's streaming85.townofbarnstable.us/cablecast public site. And we will now call the meeting to order and introduce our board members and town staff. Starting to my left with Matt.
Matt Tague, good evening.
And Ray.
Ray Sexton, good evening.
And Bob.
Bob Twist, good evening.
And Tim.
Good evening, Tim O'Neill.
And Jim.
Good evening, Interim Director Jim Kupfer.
And Karen.
Good evening, Karen Pina, Admin Assistant, Planning and Development.
And my name is Steve Robichaud, Chair. We will start this evening with any general public comment. This is typically for any public comment not related to an agenda item this evening, but if there is anybody that would like to make public comment this evening, please come forward, and you have 3 minutes to speak. You can step up to either the podium or the table here and press the button to turn the green light on with the microphone, state your name for the record, and you may begin.
Button?
Yeah, give it a test there.
Hi.
Yes, you're good to go.
Thank you for allowing me to speak. My name is David Dangler Moyer. I am the grandson of David Dangler, who purchased 220 Windswept Way in 1926. We have owned and operated it since then. I speak on behalf of an effort that I understand will come before you, an effort to subdivide land next to mine. This is land on Oyster Harbor's Island, which was laid out by the Olmsted brothers with all roads recorded in Land Court under Land Court Plan 15354A. I own the land abutting here, which is shown on the Land Court plan as here. This is the area to be talked about. I just want to make sure that any subdivision of land properly records the registered Land Court facts under Plan 15354A, which shows that Windswept Way is a way in existence since 1933 that serves all the houses on the section along here, and that the facts of the deed, where it says land under Windswept Way is not to be used for calculations for land area of building lot area, that be properly shown. There have been files planned in the past that I have filed objection to that were not properly prepared. And I wish that any plan that would be approved would have facts that comport with the deed, showing the registered facts of Windswept Way, where it's located, where the frontage is, how it serves as the access way for this section of Oyster Harbor's Island. Windswept Way is shared by the Oyster Harbor's owners, the Oyster Harbor's Club, by the abutters, and needs to serve our needs, needs to be built in properly drained so that it can serve all of our needs. And anything that's developed should all be done in compliance with that. Is that my time?
Yes, sir.
Any questions?
No, sir.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Oh, I also come with Patty Baker, who is the abutter on the other side, who's concerned with how things have gone. She lives on Windswept Way, which is a private driveway serving the four houses off of it. It is not a through way, the way that Windswept Way is the access way, which is where the fire trucks must be able to come on a road of width grading construction that works for the fire trucks so my house can receive the emergency services that I need. Thank you. I speak on behalf of my entire 6 families who used to own and be members of, which is, as I believe, we are the oldest, longest running family currently on the island. Thank you.
Great, noted. Thank you very much. Please step to the microphone just so if you'd like to speak. Yep. Okay, thank you, thank you. You can't speak from there, I'm sorry. You have to speak at the microphone. Yeah. It has to be on the legal record, and it has to be from the microphone.
My name is Patricia Baker.
Welcome. Yeah, do you mind just lowering the microphone just a little bit?
Yeah, okay. Oh,
That's
good. Better?
perfect. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Welcome.
Patricia Baker, 43 Sunset Point. And there's only 3 houses, Baker, Johnston, and Vinios. And it's a very narrow, like a path. It's almost like a path.
Got it.
Okay.
Thank you so much. Appreciate your public comment. Thank you for coming. Any additional public comment this evening before we begin?
Yes.
Welcome.
Hello. Thanks for letting me speak. My name is Patrick Irby. I'm with the firm Timon Davis and Duffy. We represent Ms. Baker and Mr. Moyer, who just spoke. My colleague Ben Timon submitted a letter to the board last week regarding the legal deficiencies of the A&R proposal for 250 Windswept Way. I don't have much time, so just to highlight a few things. The applicant here has made multiple revisions to its plan to try to cure these legal deficiencies with its A&R plan proposal. It has not cured those deficiencies, and it cannot cure them. And there are several of them, just to highlight a few. First, Parcel A with the plan has no legal frontage. For Parcel A to have legal frontage under the town code subdivision regulations, it must provide adequate access to a qualified way under the town regulations. The only way that Parcel A has access to, this is clear on the plans, is Windswept Way. There is no access to Sunset Point, despite the applicant's assertions otherwise. There is a driveway shown on the plan that leads to Windswept Way. There is no access to Sunset Point. Additionally, Windswept Way is not a qualified way under the regulations that would allow it to support an A&R plan. To be qualified, Windswept Way has to meet the requirements set forth in Code Section 801B12. That sets out minimum requirements for right-of-way width, for surface type, and also the width of the surface area. This is all set forth in greater detail in my firm's letter sent last week, but Windswept Way does not meet any of those thresholds, and therefore the A&R proposal is legally deficient. Another defect is that Parcel A does not have sufficient lot area. This is in a zone that requires 2 acres for a lot, which is the same as 87,120 square feet. The only way the applicant was able to get Parcel A to that number was by including land that is comprised of Windswept Way itself and land on the other side of Windswept Way. This is, again, detailed in our letter, but that area cannot be included as part of the lot, and therefore the lot does not have 2 acres properly included within it, and is not a buildable lot. And then finally, I'd just like to add that the most recent revised plan, dated I think is June 26, that plan was not stamped by a surveyor. We don't know if that's just an oversight or whether the surveyor would not endorse or approve this plan, but that is also a deficiency with the proposal. So in sum, these are legal deficiencies that cannot be overcome. and this board really should not endorse the A&R plan. It would not hold up upon court review. We would end up back here again anyway. It would be in everyone's interest and save everyone time for this board to decline to endorse the A&R plan and require the applicant to move forward with the approval process under the subdivision control law. Thanks very much.
Great, thank you so much. Appreciate your public comment. Any additional public comment this evening? And I know typically public comment is reserved for comment that is unrelated to an agenda item. I did make an exception this evening, as I know these individuals did come here to make comments, so I did allow it this evening. I did make that exception. Okay, we are going to continue on. Seeing no additional public comment, we have our notice of recording read, public comments. I'm going to take things out of order this evening. We're going to start with our two A&Rs. First, we're going to do Windswept Way, and then we're going to do Old Stage Road and Parker Lane. Then we'll do the subdivision for Old Stage Road and Parker Lane. Then we'll talk about the housing production plan, and then we'll have our election of officers. So we're going to start with the A&R for Windswept Way. And Tim, would you like to take that A&R for us?
Sure. Julian Family Realty Trust, Janet Julian trustee, has submitted an approval not required plan entitled Plan Showing Lot Division at 250 Windswept Way, Barnstable, Oyster Harbors, MA, dated June 26, 2024. This is not a public hearing, does not need to be voted open or closed.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. And as noted, we will not be taking any additional in-person public comment on this agenda item this evening. I am going to note, as was mentioned earlier, the board is in receipt of correspondence from attorney Benjamin Timon, a letter dated July 3rd, 2024. We've all received and reviewed this letter. Thank you for that. We have the applicant with us here this evening. Mr. Ford, welcome. Before you begin, there is a lot going on with this plan. Some elements may appear confusing to the untrained eye. For the benefit of the board, if you could please ensure your presentation includes a thorough, detailed outline for the board of how you and your applicant have met the standard required for the three key elements needed for endorsement as approval not required. Of course, those three areas of focus for us that's important to me is the lot area, frontage, and access. If you can just, highlight those for us, take as much time as you need, and if we can reference the plan on the screen as you work through it. And I do want to hear your comments on the lack of a stamp on the plan in front of us. So, welcome. Thank you for coming. And
yes,
proceed.
I was unaware that there is not a stamp on the plan. The one that I was sent to me does have a stamp on it.
No.
Yeah, good evening,
All
Jim
right.
Kupfer,
Thank
Interim
you, Jim.
Director of Planning and Development. Yes, there is a stamp on the plan. The PDF that is online does not have a stamp on it. Your Mylar and paper copies all do have stamps.
Excellent. Okay, perfect. So as noted, we do have a hand-delivered stamped plan in our possession. Attorney Ford, thank you.
Yes, thank you. So hopefully that resolves that issue. So for the record, Mr. Chairman, Attorney Michael Ford, and I represent the owner of the property shown on this plan, Janet Julian, in her capacity as trustee of the Julian Family Trust. The Julians have owned the property for several years now. They've done work on the main house that exists there. And this, not subdivision, but proposed division, is an effort to create an additional lot so that she can build a house for her brother. This plan, or a different iteration of it, has been before you before, and you have endorsed that plan. So by way of background, just to dispel some of the things that have been said, when you endorsed that plan, the trust went forward and obtained an order of conditions from the Conservation Commission for a house on the newly created vacant lot, Lot A, and Parcel A, and then received a building permit from the building inspector. My client then instructed me, because a building permit process is ex parte, but recognizing the interest there was in the neighborhood in this particular proposed development, to send copies of the building permit to the immediate abutters, Mr. Moore and Ms. Baker, and advise them in that letter that they could appeal it to the Zoning Board of Appeals within 30 days. It's not often done, but we decided to do it in this case and get it out there. They then took an appeal of the building permit, Moore and Baker, through Mr. Timon's office, Attorney Timon's office, to the Zoning Board of Appeals. And on preparing for the Zoning Board of Appeals hearing, we realized that the wetlands line that we had used to determine the lot shape configuration on the new lot was a wetlands line that was on the plan when she bought the property. But when we went in for the order of conditions, there was a new wetlands line that was more conservative. And we had not used that new wetlands line in configuring the lot shape. As a result, I reported that to the building commissioner. The building commissioner said, look, what I'll do then is I'll simply suspend the building permit. I won't revoke it if you intend to go back and file a new A&R plan. So we did. We worked on it, and what we did was to revise the common lot line between the two lots. And we did so in such a fashion so as to comply, given that new wetlands line, and meet the shape factor once again. We've now submitted that plan for your consideration as an A&R. So this whole process has nothing to do with whether or not you erred when you signed the last A&R plan. Lot configuration is not one of the things that's before you on an A&R. Neither is lot area. Those are zoning matters. And when you sign an A&R plan, right on it is a provision that says endorsement of this plan is not a certification that the lots on the plan meet zoning. And we know that. So it really wasn't an issue that was material to your last A&R plan. So that plan was recorded. It's at the Registry of Deeds, but we now seek a new plan which creates a new vacant lot, which I can represent to you now meets the lot shape factor based upon the new wetlands line. But let's talk about things that really are material for this board. In order to have the plan endorsed, we have to show you that the lots shown on the plan have frontage on a way that provides sufficient access and meets one of the requirements for an A&R under the subdivision control law. And we have checked off that Sunset Way, which on this plan, as you can see, comes off of Windswept, bears to the left, right at the beginning of Lot A. It's 30 feet in width, and Sunset has been a road that first the Board of Survey, and I think these are in your file, I filed them previously, back in, let me just get the date. Board of Survey back in 1952, and this was filed with you, endorsed a plan showing Sunset Way and providing access to what is now the Vinios property. And it's shown there as a 30-foot right-of-way. The second plan that has been before the Planning Board on Sunset Way is an approval not required plan that was endorsed by the board in 1965. I also filed that with you. And that goes by my client's property. In fact, what it did was to divide my client's property that used to be larger and created the lot upon which one of the Patty Baker's lot. So her lot was done on an A&R plan off of Sunset. That's the same road that we're suggesting to you provides frontage for the additional lot that we're proposing to create, Parcel A. And what we did was to take the portions of our property, my client's property, that comprise Sunset Way and make them separate lots. Now, why did we do that? We did that upon consultation with the building commissioner, because we have a provision in our zoning ordinance that says that no portion of a lot can be bisected by a street. And if we're using Sunset Road as the street from which we obtain frontage for the division that's proposed, we wanted to show that it was not part of the lots that were before you. And I ran that by the building commissioner, and he thought that was a good way to show that no portion of Sunset was being included in either the house parcel that's already there, Parcel B, or the new lot, Parcel A. And that's the reason we did that. But that's still Sunset Way. It's still a 30-foot way. It's a way that this board has signed A&Rs before, including, ironically, creating the lot upon which Ms. Baker's parcel is, a 1.9-acre lot. So it's our opinion. We have rights in Sunset Way. Your staff asked me to provide a legal memo to show you that we had rights in Sunset Way. I did that. Sunset Way was created back in the 30s, and it was by stipulation. And my client clearly has rights in the documents that I filed in Sunset Way. In addition to that, the new lot has 40 feet of frontage on Windswept. Now, what do I mean by that? Windswept Road, as it comes up to my client's property, you can see where it says Windswept Way in the upper right-hand corner of the lot. It's a 40-foot layout. That Windswept Way was laid out by the land court and was shown on a plan in the land court in 1951. I have a copy of that, and I'd be happy to just, if I may approach. Not sure I filed that.
All right, thank you.
Why is that important? That's important because it shows that Windswept Way ends when it reaches my client's property. And then it turns into, not Windswept Way, but a 20-foot private right-of-way that runs across my client's property down to the property of Mr. Moore. That private right-of-way is not shown on a land court plan, has never been laid out by the land court, was created by a stipulation between parties, and it is nothing more, I would suggest to you, than a right-of-way. You've just heard them argue that we can't use that 20-foot right-of-way for frontage. We would agree. Why? Because it's not a street, and the building commissioner so concurred. But if it's not a street, then there is no requirement that we cannot include it as part of our lot. Now, I know that's a question that's going to be before the Zoning Board of Appeals, not you, but I just wanted to explain that distinction. Windswept Way ends at my client's property. There's 41 feet of frontage for that new lot right there on Windswept Way. This right-of-way then travels towards the Moore property and then curls to the north and plugs back into Windswept Way North, which is a 40-foot layout shown on land court plans. This right-of-way running in between is not Windswept Way. It never has been, it's never been laid out, it's never been shown on a plan that the planning board has signed to provide frontage to anybody. But the two Windswept Ways, one leading up to my client's property and the one to the north down near Mr. Moore's property that heads north up the island, those have been shown on subdivision plans and on A&R plans that the planning board has signed to create lots off of them. So even if there was a question of having too many lots come off of Sunset, we have the additional argument that the new lot has 41 feet of frontage off of windswept.
Do you mind if I pause for just one moment to ask a question?
Absolutely.
Just so I can try and keep up. Basically, because that's a right-of-way and is not, and has not been labeled as windswept way, then that allows you to use that area towards the lot area.
Right, because it's not a street.
Okay. And then,
It is a street in the zoning ordinance that no portion of a lot can be bisected by a street.
but you're saying that that is not defined as a street, but
Exactly.
a right-of-way.
And to listen to their arguments, they've argued inconsistently. They've said on the one hand that that should be a street and not included as the area in our lot, and on the other hand, they've said that's not a street, it doesn't provide frontage, you can't use it for frontage. I mean, they're arguing it both ways. You can't have it both ways. I would agree with them. It's not a street, and because it's not a street, Mr. Florence, the building commissioner, indicated he has no problems with it being used as part of lot area, because if
Okay,
it can't be
understood.
frontage, then it's not a street.
Okay, and then just one other question. You mentioned a moment ago, how do I phrase this, that some may argue against the frontage on Sunset Point. Why would anybody have that argument, I guess is my question?
Their argument, which I disagree with,
Yeah,
their
go ahead.
argument was there's no physical access currently into my client's property from Sunset.
Because of parcel C?
Well, that doesn't matter. I don't know what their reasoning is, but no, they're saying there's no driveway, nothing's cut in, there is no access.
Oh.
Well, in Barnstable, as I understand the ordinance, you have to have a legal right-of-way over the area that you're proffering as frontage. Got to have the right to put the access in. It can't be illusory. That's why I filed the memo to show that we have rights in Sunset, could put driveways anywhere off of Sunset to reach the new lot or the existing house.
Okay, thank you.
So, in summation, Mr. Chairman, rather than to continue this on, I think you can make the same decision that you made last time I was here, a proper decision that there is frontage for these two lots, one an existing house and one a new lot, and that we do meet the requirements of the A&R, and I've added that additional possibility of windswept, just if you thought Sunset was overburdened or something, well, we could take our frontage off of windswept.
But why even bother? if
Why
it's-
bother?
if
We don't
it's-
have to. We don't have
Okay.
to. Keep
Yeah.
it clean. I would agree with you. I'm just telling you there are additional options out there if that was something that any board member had a problem with.
Yeah, I mean, Sunset
So-
seems more obvious to
I
me,
think
but-
the staff has reviewed it. They've concluded the same way. But I want to make sure that I state for the record, because in their letter, they've indicated that by virtue of coming back here, we've admitted that the first A&R plan should not have been signed. Well, nothing could be farther from the truth. All we did was to come back and rejigger the common lot line to address the lot shape problem. Had nothing to do with factors that were before this board.
Okay, thank you very much. And again, you know, I don't know how many members here were present at the first one, so I like to start fresh.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, and just make sure that
I'm happy to
everyone
take
here
additional
understands.
questions, Mr. Chairman.
There may
if
be.
there are any.
Jim, is there anything that you would like to touch on at the moment?
No, nothing further. You have a staff report dated July 1 that outlines our stance.
Okay, excellent, thank you. Go to board members here, starting with Matt. Matt, any questions or comments?
Yeah, just quickly, to clarify, so parcel A, what is the form of title for parcels A and B? Are those registry land or are those on certificates?
It's
a little hard to
all
tell.
unregistered. All of this
All
is
unregistered
unregistered.
land?
Yes.
Okay, so the reference to the land court plan is solely with regard to the property line on the north?
That's correct. There is a bit of the property that, on the north that may fall into that registered section, but her title, as far as I know, is all unregistered. Her title references a book and page number.
Okay, thank you.
Ray?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So Matt, please, again, I'm learning again from you. What's the distinction? Why did you ask whether it was registered or unregistered?
My understanding would be that if it were all registered land, that this plan would be reviewed by a land court surveyor and may address some of the concerns with right-of-way and otherwise. That's why I'm asking that question.
Okay, thanks, Matt. So, Mr. Ford, if I understand this correctly, Windswept Way dead ends into, both pieces of it dead end into parcel A. Is that right?
That's correct. And there's a right-of-way that runs to Mr. Moore's property,
Okay.
which he and others have rights.
And Sunset Point, this is a little confusing. Sunset Point actually abuts parcel A, is that correct?
That's correct. And what we did was our lot currently, without this division, includes portions of Sunset Point. And so as not to have a street as part of our lot, we made them separate parcels.
Okay, and then, because of the way they're sort of cited here, parcel C and parcel D, neither one of them separate either parcel B or parcel A from Sunset Point.
No, they don't.
Okay, so then, as far as frontage goes, just because there's no driveways
Right.
doesn't mean you can't access Sunset Point at some site.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Even if those little unbuildable parcels were put in a different ownership, there's already rights in these lots, once this plan is signed and recorded, to use Sunset Way. It runs to the whole of the property.
Understood. Thank you, Ray. Yeah, good question. For me, the frontage on Sunset Point is much clearer than the frontage on Windswept. So, after reviewing your presentation, to me, there's sufficient area, sufficient access, and sufficient frontage. I just would like to ask one question, and again, this may be unrelated, but the paved drive that currently goes from the end of Windswept Way to the property on parcel B.
Right.
Does that paved way, should it remain, have any impact on access or frontage for parcel A on Sunset Point?
No. And what we have to show you, the planning board, is that we are able to access. Where they end up putting the access as most efficiently as they can, I'm not sure where that will be yet. I'm not sure whether a driveway will be moved to go to the house or whether that driveway will stay. But that's really not material to the A&R plan.
Yes,
Doesn't have any effect on it.
Understood. I just wanted to verify that. I mean, for me, I recognize the 247.79 feet of frontage on Sunset Point. Bob?
Thanks. I had just,
Microphone.
thank you. I just have a couple of follow-up questions. I think I'm following up on Ray and
Sure.
Matt's questions as well as Steve's, but I just want to make sure that the record is abundantly clear for any future review. So as I understand it, on the issue of frontage, under the proposal on parcel A, there's 40.03 feet of frontage on Windswept Way in the northwest corner. That would be the panhandle section in the upper left-hand corner. Correct?
Correct.
Right? And also in the northeast corner, the upper right-hand corner, there's 41.74 feet of frontage on Windswept Way, where Windswept Way qualifies under all the normal building requirements for the street. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And then, even with the creation of parcel C, the proposed parcel C, with regard to the frontage of parcel A on Sunset, there is 143.48 feet of frontage on parcel A onto Sunset Point, even with the creation of the new parcel C.
I think it's more than that. I'm just, I can't read the plan from here.
Yeah, I mean, if you add
I
the
think
one.
it's, I think it's 200 and something feet.
247.79.
Yeah, 247.
If you add them both up.
Oh, I see,
The
okay.
104.31 and the 143.48.
Well, the southernmost 53 feet that's in parcel B.
Correct.
And
On
then from
on
the
Sunset.
lot line between A and B up to where C, takes
Ends.
away land on Sunset,
Yeah,
the plot plan I have shows 143.48
Okay.
feet.
all right,
So there's 3 separate locations, as I understand it,
there is.
on the plot plan, any one of which qualifies.
Right, since this is a 20-foot frontage zone.
Right, thank you. And the other issue that was raised in the public comment issue that I'd like just to clarify, because I know there's been, as you pointed out, different outlines and different configurations and different numbers of square feet. But the plot plan we have before us for parcel A shows a total of 95,436 total feet, subtracting the wetlands feet, leaving a total of 91,254 square feet of upland.
Correct.
Which is well in excess of the 87,000
Correct,
minimum figure.
correct.
Thank you.
Even though you're not making a determination as to zoning, and your endorsement says that.
Right. I just want the record to be clear that what we're approving has more than 2 acres of land on the plot plan we're approving.
It
Not
does.
approving, but endorsing. There was an allegation
Right,
made earlier tonight that when you subtract the wetlands, it falls below 87,000. But
but
apparently that's
Right.
not referring to the map that's actually before us, because this one shows after wetlands, 91,000.
right.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Tim?
I think all the other board members covered most of my questions. The only thing I would like to ask about for information purposes is the property line to the north. I think, is that the one that was amended based on the wetlands delineation?
No, that property line stays the same. We reconfigured the common lot line between A and B in order to achieve the shape factor. That's what's changed between this plan and the one you previously endorsed. And we had to do that because we now recognize in configuring lot shape and lot area, the new wetlands line that's associated with the order of conditions that was issued.
And that wetland line is along the north there?
That's correct.
Okay, so the adjoining property line is what had to adjust for the shape factor
Right.
based on that, not necessarily the north property line.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Jim, anything for us?
Nope, nothing
Okay.
further.
Attorney Ford, anything to add before we look for a motion?
I don't think so, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, appreciate your presentation and patience as we work through some questions. Let's see, Tim, was this yours?
Yes.
Yeah, Tim, we look for a motion on this, and just a reminder, we're going to read the findings found on the staff report.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to endorse the plan entitled Plan of Land Showing Lot Division at 250 Windswept Way, Barnstable, Oyster Harbors, MA, prepared for the Julian Family Realty Trust, drawn and stamped by Richard R. LaRue, PLS of Cape Serve, dated June 26, 2024, is an approval not required plan with the following findings. 1, it does not constitute a subdivision because each of the lots have the maximum required frontage on existing...
Have the minimum required frontage.
Sorry, edit, I'm going to reread that. 1, it does not constitute a subdivision because each of the lots have the minimum required frontage on an existing way having suitable grades and adequate construction to provide for the needs of vehicular traffic in relation to the proposed use and for the installation of municipal services to service such use or has been labeled as not buildable. And 2, all materials and conditions of Chapter 801, Article 5, approval not required plans have been submitted and are in full compliance.
Article 4.
Article
sorry.
4,
Article
sorry.
4. Yep. Great, thank you for that, Tim. Any questions before we look for a second? All set. And a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Matt. All those in favor? Matt?
Aye.
Ray?
Aye.
Bob?
Aye.
Tim?
Aye.
And myself, Steve Robichaud, votes aye. Motion passes.
Thank you very
Attorney
much.
Ford. Appreciate it. Thank you. Going to move on to our next A&R this evening. Matt, if you could take this one. This is Old Stage and Parker Lane.
Good evening. The next matter in front of us is an approval not required plan entitled Approval Not Required Plan of Land on Old Stage Road in Parker Lane in Barnstable, Mass. Relocation of Parker Lane on proposed lots 1 and 2, prepared for Larry Nicholas, drawn and stamped by Gallagher Engineering, dated June 18, 2024, last revised July 8, 2024, which has been submitted to the board for an endorsement as an approval not required plan. That's good, right?
Perfect.
Thank you.
Nailed it. Thank you. Yep. And let's see. So again, as an A&R, this is not a public hearing. We will not be taking in-person public comment on this agenda item this evening. We have not received any correspondence on this item. We are in receipt of a new stamped plan dated today, July 8th, 2024. We do have the applicant here to present and go over the changes. I have to note, I am a little frustrated that we received this so late in the game. We all have very busy lives, and it's important for staff and this board to be able to review the change, even if the change is minor. So I just have to note that for the record. Also wanted to note that if we do have a motion on this, the motion should note the staff report dated July 8th, 2024, which is today. Again, plan updated today, staff report updated today. Jim, anything before we hear from the applicant?
No, there are some plan changes that remedy the frontage requirement concern from the last meeting, but I'm sure the applicant will go over that.
Okay, welcome. Tell us about the changes. Thanks for coming.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. Jeffrey Johnson on behalf of the applicant. First, let me apologize for the late delivery. I know everybody's busy. The main difference between the prior version of the plan and this plan is that we were attempting in the prior plan to convince you that we had frontage over an easement area that is shown as part of Mr. Egan's subdivision. We struck a deal with the Egans, and we actually purchased that parcel, which is shown as Parcel A on Plan Book 701, pages 31 and 32. That cured, in my opinion, all the deficiencies in the earlier version of the plan. We now have contiguous and continuous frontage along Parker Lane for Lot 2. You may recall that Lot 1 has a pre-existing house on it. It takes its frontage off of Old Stage Road. Both lots exceed 2 acres in size. And pursuant to the staff report, we have labeled the portions of Parker Road that we intend to privately relocate as not separate buildable lots. We're just going to straighten out that area of the land. We have the right to do that on a private easement area under the M&T Builders case, so long as we're not frustrating the purpose of anyone who has rights over that road. You may recall from our prior hearing that I suggested that this Parker Road has been shown on what we call the Walling map, and therefore it has a certain status in the town as a recognized road, as it were, but it's a private road only for the benefit of those parcels that abut it. We have rights over Parker Road all the way from Old Stage Road out to the service road as being an abutter to that road. And again, Lot 2 takes its frontage from Parker Road, and the frontage now exceeds 500 linear feet. Because of that, Parcel A split up our frontage on Parker Road. In the prior version of the plan, we might have been forced to do a full-blown subdivision plan, but this is an A&R plan. We have on the plan demonstrated sufficient area for each lot shown on the plan, frontage, and your endorsement of Mr. Egan's plan essentially indicates that the access is adequate. He's got to construct that. We're doing that in conjunction with him, and we believe that this is now ripe for signature. And again, I apologize for the late delivery. We just acquired this piece the other day, and as soon as we acquired parcel A on the 2nd of July, I emailed Jim a copy of the deed so he had a heads up, so it wasn't going to be a surprise. And Mr. Gallagher is supposed to be off this month, but we pulled him in from his vacation to run around to his office and to obtain the signatures and the recalculations and of the area, et cetera. And again, we really do apologize for anything last minute, but I don't think it's been a surprise as to what we needed to do to fix the issue that was created by our earlier presentation.
Got it. Thank you for that. I appreciate that. Ray, I know you had a question. Why don't you lead off?
Yeah, I appreciate your indulgence here. Appreciate your apology. It doesn't make our job any easier when I walk in and sit down and, oh, there's something new here. My immediate reaction is, well, maybe we need to just wait, look at this and consult with the staff as opposed to trying to do it on the fly tonight. Just so you know what I'm thinking about. My question is, I just wanted to follow what you were saying. So on the map here, Parker Road comes in, and then there's a. So you're saying that Parker Road, through parcel A, where it's noted not a buildable lot for the relocation of Parker Lane. So is that straight shot out to Old Stage Road? That's a continuation of Parker Lane that starts off to the right?
All right, so if you're looking at our plan, Parker Road is the dotted line that meanders through Lot 1. And it's our intention to move that meandering road up to parcel A,
Okay.
okay?
And
So
parcel A then connects to Parker Road?
Parker Road as it travels between Mr. Egan's property and our Lot 2.
Okay.
And we acquired, I don't know if you have handy, but I could show you what parcel A looked like on the Egan plan.
That's fine. I
would that
just
be
wanted
helpful?
to make sure I was clear on when you were talking about where Parker Road is now and where you propose it to be.
Yes, we propose to privately
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
relocate it.
And
on Lot 1.
where Parker Road hits parcel A from the right side of the plan, that has been improved under the Egan subdivision.
Yes.
And that's why the frontage is allowed on Parker Lane through Lot 2. It really doesn't matter if and when parcel A is turned into the rest of Parker Lane. That doesn't matter for our A&R, right, Jim? We're just looking at, does Lot 2 have frontage now?
Right, yeah, so ultimately, if privately they wanted to build a driveway in parcel A, that might trigger stormwater review by DPW perhaps or something, but in terms of your review this evening, Lot 1 has access from Old Stage Road and has frontage on Old Stage Road. Lot 2, you're correct, has frontage now from what Parker Lane, I guess, extension from Mr. Egan from the previous subdivision that was approved a few years back. And the remedy is that dotted line of where the drainage easement is stated. It's no longer a parcel line, but a dotted line illustrating where the easement is, but that now it's one lot, and Lot 2 has that new area and frontage. So now enjoys more than the required frontage.
And all of that frontage can now be used. Jim, this is just kind of a random question for my own curiosity. Say the Egan subdivision had just been approved and the Egans had not yet upgraded that road, would we have been allowed to consider that frontage?
It would have been up to this board to determine whether it's adequate access at that time. So potentially it could have been, depending on where it stood, adequate, but it would be up to you, this
Okay.
board to determine.
And you've been out to the site and can certify that that is upgraded at this point?
It's not 100% complete, but it has been upgraded, yes.
Okay, thank you. Matt, anything? Bob?
I'm good, thanks.
All right, Tim?
No questions.
Okay, excellent. So we'd look for a motion on this, and again, just noting that the plan and the staff report, what we're referencing is the July 8th dated, and we're reading the findings located on page 2 of the staff report.
I'll make a motion, Mr. Chairman. I will, subject to the following findings, and I'll read those first, that this plan qualifies, the plan as submitted qualifies as an approval not required plan, and it may be endorsed by the board because, one, it does not constitute a subdivision because each of the lots have minimum required frontage on an existing way having suitable grades and adequate construction to provide for the needs of vehicular traffic in relation to the proposed use and for the installation of municipal services to serve such use or has been labeled as not buildable, sorry. Second finding is that all materials and conditions of Chapter 801, Article 4, approval not required plans have been submitted and are in full compliance. And number 3, any other additional information referenced in tonight's staff report dated 7/8/24. And then, of course, a motion to endorse this plan, including those findings.
Can you just read the full?
Sure.
Okay.
So the motion would be to endorse the plan entitled Approval Not Required Plan of Land on Old Stage Road and Parker Lane in Barnstable, Mass. Relocation of Parker Lane on proposed lots 1 and 2, prepared for Larry Nicholas, drawn and stamped by Gallagher Engineering, dated June 18th, last revised July 8th, 2024, as an approval not required plan.
Excellent, well done. Thank you. In a second?
I'll second.
All right, thank you, Bob. And all those in favor, Matt?
Aye.
Ray?
Mr. Chairman, I reluctantly will vote, defer to your wise judgment, and
Okay.
I will vote aye.
All right, thank you, sir. Bob?
Aye.
Tim?
Aye.
And myself, Steve Robichaud, votes aye. Motion carries. Thank you very much. And we're going to jump right to the subdivision. This is subdivision number 829. Larry Nicholas has submitted.
I
What?
don't
Oh,
think you
sorry.
need to read, we withdraw that plan.
Yeah, let me just read it in, and then I'll have you officially withdraw it. Okay. Subdivision number 829, Larry Nicholas has submitted an application for a definitive subdivision of Old Stage Road and Parker Lane, West Barnstable, Mass. Assessors map 152, parcels 110 and 006, continued from June 10, 2024 and June 24, 2024.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The applicant would like to withdraw that plan.
Excellent, thank you very much. Do we have a motion to accept the withdrawal?
So moved.
Thank you, Matt. And a second?
Second.
Doing the mic if you can.
Second.
Thank you, Ray. All those in favor? Matt?
Aye.
Ray?
Aye.
Bob?
Aye.
Tim?
Aye.
And myself, Steve Robichaud, votes aye. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Have
Took a
good
little time,
night.
but we got it done. Thank you. Okay, excellent.
And actually, just a point of order on that one.
Absolutely, go ahead.
It was a public hearing. Do we have to vote the public hearing closed and then withdraw, or just one vote and we're done?
No, you've accepted the withdrawal.
Okay.
So we're okay. Good call, though, Tim. Good catch. Okay. So we're actually going to go back in time here and look at page 1. We're going to go to the housing production plan. For those who are not aware, Elizabeth Jenkins is no longer with the town of Barnstable. She's actually moved on, and she is now with the town of Orleans. Jim is acting director, interim director. So congratulations to Jim, and we will absolutely miss Elizabeth and everything that she did for this town. I say that because we go to Jim now to talk about the housing production plan. I have some questions I put together for Jim. Jim, is there anything you want to say before I get into some questions and we see if the board has any questions or comments?
No, nothing additional. As you may recall, at the last meeting, Elizabeth Jenkins went through the housing production plan in total and provided a more succinct document kind of outlining the key aspects of this plan. Just a reminder, this is a plan that is required under Mass General Law 40B. This is not a locally sponsored plan that we would do if Mass General Law 40B wasn't in play. Really, what the local communities would do is do a housing chapter in your local comprehensive plan, which we are currently actively doing. So running kind of parallel right now with the housing production plan and our housing chapter of our local comprehensive plan with the local comprehensive planning committee, as you guys know. So there are, I say that because the state requirements are very prescribed as to what is necessary to be in this plan in order for it to be certified. The ultimate goal, if you're going to do a housing production plan, obviously, is for it to be certified. The process for which the plan goes through is it started with the Housing Committee. The Housing Committee did receive a presentation very much like the one you received at your last meeting and reviewed and offered some comments. Then obviously it went to the Planning Board. It's at the Planning Board. It shall go then to Town Council, who right now also has a subcommittee for housing. So in discussions with leadership, the discussion is for this housing production plan to then go to the Town Council's housing subcommittee before ultimately going to the council. The council must adopt if it's going to then go to the state for certification. And in between that, the town manager would sign after town council has adopted. So with that, really tonight, the thought was any questions that may have arisen since the last presentation. Happy to take comments as well.
Thank you, Jim. I'll mention a couple things real quick. There has been some public comment about, some of the strategies in the plan and where those strategies might take place. It's my opinion that those type of discussions would take place at LCP. I think LCP would be the ones to really decide kind of, the geographic approach. I think the housing production plan is more intended to just put the issues at hand and a baseline info and some strategies on paper. So the other thing I wanted to mention is rather than us voting on this this evening, again, as Jim mentioned, I remember town council mentioning that they want to have the new town council subcommittee review this. I'm kind of thinking prior to our vote, I'd like to hear their thoughts. So, again, I have some questions, but my thought is after we have time to ask our questions, we could consider asking staff to talk to town council leadership to refer it to the committee to assess and recommend strategies for housing creation within the town. Have they met yet, Jim? Have they had a couple meetings?
I believe their first meeting is actually next week.
Okay, great. All right, so they're just getting going, so the timing could be good. And if everyone agrees, then we simply would make a motion to continue. And based on the timing, I think our motion would continue to likely the August 26th meeting. So again, we just kind of putting that out there. And
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah.
Just a question. These subcommittees are actually ad hoc committees that were created at the behest of the council president and actually they're not created by the town charter. These are just informal, not actually funded out of the town budget, as I understand. These are just creations of the I guess the president of the town council. Is that correct?
Well, I can't really speak to the funding of them. I do know that the concept came from town council leadership, but it was voted on by the full council, and a majority vote was taken to put those subcommittees into place. They are advisory, I guess is the best word. They don't have, binding decision power, but they are offering recommendations and advising boards like town council and planning. Did I explain that right, do you think?
Yeah, I think that's accurate.
Okay.
I'm just concerned, Mr. Chairman, of how many informal hoops that are being created to try to get something done.
Yeah, understood. Great, appreciate that. So again, I've got some questions I typed up. Everyone all right with me leading it off? Go for it. Cool with that? Okay, all right. Jim, I just want to talk about the inclusionary affordable housing ordinance. As we all know, currently 10% has been discussions about that changing. Let me just turn to the page here. Basically, the wording in the plan is to strengthen the inclusionary affordable housing ordinance by requiring a higher percentage of affordable units at a variety of income levels. That definitely is something that I agree with and I think is the right approach. But I do wonder if too high of a percentage is put out there, will it stop housing development in its tracks? I know I believe Falmouth is at about a 25%, and their results are not great. Personally, I feel 12 to 15% range kind of feels right, but I just don't want to leave developers with only one option, and that's an unfriendly 40B. So, do you know of any information or studies out there about where that tipping point might be?
Yeah, that's a great question. A great kind of introduction into inclusionary zoning. 10% is kind of a blunt tool that was established across the Commonwealth some time ago. A lot of folks, a lot of communities adopted this inclusionary housing zoning at 10% with the thought of you get to 10% and then that tool keeps you at 10%. And that might be true, but you're never kind of inching closer to 10% if you're just mandating the 10% and everyone is seeking the minimum requirement. But you're right. I mean, too high of a percentage is absolutely going to stymie of development. A recent precedent is a development in the Independence Park area that was agreed to at 13%, and that didn't seem to hinder that development. So, 13 from a practical standpoint that we've seen has worked, but there is a lot of variables to that. That is a large development, for instance, so they might be able to take in that extra burden or I shouldn't say burden, but the extra 3% inclusionary housing. So we have done early studies with an economist about a year and a half ago that started to outline what some improvements to our inclusionary housing could look like. And they started to dive into those variables that I just mentioned there. Is where do we range between 10 to 15? The more you get, the higher percentage, the more subsidies is necessary to achieve that in a smaller development. Because the performance just simply don't work out according to our economists that looked at it. The other aspect of our specific inclusionary housing is that we have a unique area median income. We require 65% area median income at 10%, where much of the Commonwealth has an 80%. There are very strict categories in HUD's formulas, and 65% is not one of them. So it's fairly unique. So that
Can you talk to why? Why is that?
I'm not sure the original how that came to be. Honestly, I could do some digging into that.
Just curious.
Yeah, but the simple answer is it simply isn't what the HUD standards are, which again throws everyone's formulas off and when they're looking at the performance. The other aspects that are recommended looking at least is again tiered percentages. So looking at small projects and big projects a little bit differently. And then density bonuses are a tool that people are using quite a bit, or communities are using quite a bit now, where if you are to increase that percentage, you're then allowing for some additional units to kind of offset that cost. So bottom line in the housing production plan, it talks about looking at that inclusionary housing and tweaking that. And these are all the variables that I think would come from that analysis.
No, great answer. I really appreciate that. I know Matt and Tim, you guys can speak to how much costs have gone up when it comes to building. And I know, if you put a percentage like 20, 25 out there and then expected builders to come, I just don't think that developers are just going to show up. I think they're going to stay away from the town of Barnstable.
Yeah, I think you're right. I guess my fundamental disconnect with the current mantra on housing is that everybody has to run now to get subsidies, right? We've broken this machine to the point where we have to pour oil into it to get it to continue to run. And, there are some other mechanisms out there. You referenced them in the housing report, which I thought were great, some of the incentives the state's giving out. But that challenge of how do we provide housing at all income levels is going to continue to become exponentially separated from what people can afford on a day-to-day basis, right? So, I think there's an approach here that is comprehensive in the fact that it looks at all sorts of concepts, right? You've got, the scaled affordability criteria. There are some other notes in there referencing Chapter 40Y, which has a lot of provisions. The housing bond bill that was recently adopted, I believe by the Senate, has a number of incentives for communities to continue to do this stuff. So the nice thing about us coming up with the housing production plan at this moment in history is that it is the number one focus, I think, of the administration at the state level, because nothing else we do happens without it. You can't build highways, you can't build more houses, you can't send teachers to school, you can't have firemen or nurses or doctors or otherwise if they don't have a place to live. So, you're going to continue to see a lot of great ideas thrown around. And I'll just go back to my other statement, which again was very smartly addressed in that outline that we received on this, is that we need to concurrent with these plans for housing. We need to be in lockstep with those with a foundational expansion of infrastructure, right? It has to go hand in hand, and it's how we got here 35, 40, over the last 40 years, we kind of sat back and went, that's good enough. And like I said at the last meeting, vast swaths of this town have no public water.
Yeah.
It's kind of silly. It's 2024.
Right.
So thank you.
Yeah, well said. And I did notice quite a bit in the housing bond bill about infrastructure, but just let me just piggyback on one thing he said real quick. The subsidies, the trust, the Affordable Housing Trust only has so much income. And right now, the main source of income is CPA funds, and that just can't fund it to the level it needs to be funded at. So that has to find other sources of income. The housing bond bill noted $800 million for the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. Is that money transferred to local housing trusts? Do you know that?
Not certain on the final destination. Matt might know better from close look at the housing bond bill. I'm not sure the final destination. It appears that would be the case. But Jillian Douglas, our housing trust administrators here, we could certainly follow up on that and get back to you on that.
That'd be great. Yeah, I'd love to hear more about that. Ray, I saw you turn your mic on. Go ahead.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Matt, that was spot on, and I just want to foot stomp that the fact is, we're not going to have nurses. We're not going to have firemen. We're not going to have policemen. We're not going to have the guys that mow the lawns. All you got to do on Route 28 is count how many pickup trucks are pulling trailers for landscapers. You need all kinds of folks to do the, if you will, what used to be called, I guess, blue-collar work and maybe white-collar work. And there's a lot of hand-wringing that goes on, but as Ronald Reagan said, the miracle of the marketplace usually will work out a way for people to make a buck and create affordable housing. And if the public government will create the public infrastructure to support that, and with some reasonable tax breaks or subsidies or incentives, this is doable, and we can do anything that we want to do if it's important enough. And if we don't create this, the economy of the Cape is going to just stagnate, pure and simple. And this is the number one priority. So listen to Matt.
Well said. No, I like that. Yeah, I just have two more quick things. The page 3 note, it's a recommendation for starter home zoning districts. Are you aware of any case studies around the nation or New England that could be referenced in the housing production plan? Any sort of districts like this that have really hit the mark and been successful that could be not included in detail, but just referenced
Great point. Starter homes is definitely a need, and yes, there are a number of models across the Commonwealth that we could insert in here as a nice reference. There's things like 40R, which predates 40Y, that kind of started to move in that direction of starter homes, but with different housing typologies. And it was meant to create those units near areas of transit. So there was strict requirements from the state in order to proceed with a 40R district. But then there's also, even older measures where we're talking about cluster subdivisions where you create some density, some smaller homes while in turn providing open space. These are all strategies that were done, over decades, and we can get back to some of that. 40Y attempts to do just that, and that's why it's referenced in here. Yes, we can absolutely grab a few models and put them in here to show people it can be done, it has been done, and we can do it.
Yeah, I think the 40Y is very compelling. I like that has come up as an idea for the Marston's Mills site, especially because sewer will be going right past there. I know it's going to take some time, but to me, if you can get the density to get people that could own a home, it's great to have affordable apartments that people can rent. It's great to have townhouses and condos, but to actually own a home, a piece of land and a home is something that that will be extinct on Cape Cod if we don't do something. Last thing is just the tax credit outlined under the seasonal community designation, I think is a great idea. Again, I apologize, I've not read every page of the HPP. Is that noted in the housing production plan as a strategy or opportunity?
Yes, absolutely. So on page 27, we talk about strategies and identify just that. Talk about the seasonal housing challenges, and we specifically call out the seasonal communities designation. Essentially, it's meant to, and my understanding is meant to operate very similar to the Gateway Cities designation, which we are one as well. And it's helpful because it kind of rises those communities to the top for certain funding sources and also collaboration. We get together with all the other gateway cities quite often to understand what they're going through, what we're going through, and learn from those issues. So yes, it seems like it could be a great tool for us as very much a seasonal community. And we'll certainly follow that along and see where it takes us.
Great. I mean, yeah, for me, the couple things that I think we should consider is adding to this plan is the starter home district case studies, 40R and 40Y. And then, I really think we should think about possibly having something in there that says the inclusionary affordable housing ordinance should not exceed 15% unless done as density bonus. So now, how does that work with the planning board? Do we offer recommendations to edit the plan?
Well, ultimately, your role is to adopt a plan at some point. So you could certainly, at this point, offer comments and edits and suggestions. In turn, it's very likely the housing subcommittee will do the same. So your suggestion to talk to council about maybe coming after them is a good suggestion. They may have some other tweaks that for your consideration.
Great. Yeah, we'll see how that goes, and then we can consider some of those changes. Bob?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to build on Matt's and Ray's comments earlier. We've been talking for years on the planning board, as many of the other boards and commissions in town have been talking as well, about the issue that Ray specifically discussed about not being able to get not only landscapers, but also teachers and firemen and health personnel, nurses, et cetera, et cetera. And the issue, affordable housing is certainly part of the issue, but the real issue in my mind is housing that's affordable, which is not necessarily affordable housing. We certainly want to try to meet the state-imposed goals, but as Ray was focusing on, many of the people that we need to have will not be able to meet the affordable housing criteria. So we need to get that middle ground, as Matt mentioned as well. housing that's affordable for people who don't qualify for affordable housing, or the supply of affordable housing. And I think what we're doing, I think across the board, is we're trying to set a policy to encourage the maximum production of housing which is affordable in percentages that work for the town of Barnstable and the people who work in the town of Barnstable and have to commute to the town of Barnstable. So I share your concern, Mr. Chair, that I don't think we should try to specify a certain number, like a 25% or 20%, because that is, as you point out, and as Matt pointed out, going to discourage people who would be willing to, hopefully willing to provide housing that's affordable, make it impossible for them to provide housing which is affordable. So I think we have to maintain as much flexibility as possible while making clear our goal is to maximize the amount of housing we can produce that meets our needs. And apart with flexibility with regard to those percentages, as Jim just pointed out, we're only one state out of 50. We don't have all the answers on how to do this, and infrastructure is created in other states differently than it's created in Massachusetts. And leaving ourselves some flexibility with our development agreements, things of that nature, it gives us the opportunity to maybe create some of that infrastructure to support the housing that otherwise wouldn't be built if we keep that flexibility part of our program. As you mentioned, Mr. Chair, in the Local Comprehensive Planning Committee, there's been extensive discussions along the lines I've just outlined, such as Jim mentioned, cluster types of housing. Are there places, for instance, where it would make sense with new sewer connections that we could put houses at a quarter of an acre, for instance, instead of 2 acres?
Right.
Providing enough open space in the development so that people have an opportunity, kids can go out and play, people can get outside,
Right.
and not be locked in a tight, overly urban environment in what is not an overly urban town, a city, that being Barnstable. California has contractors provide sewers and roads as part of the agreement to build subdivisions. Massachusetts, as I understand it, doesn't do that, but that doesn't mean we can't get concessions in our negotiations. So I think the flexibility we need to keep to maintain is the ability to make those negotiations. And as Matt also suggested, although I don't want to speak for him on this, but I think he suggested, there are a number of different ways to finance housing. And we don't want to lock ourselves into one way or 2 ways if there are 4 ways out there that people might be able to choose. And one builder may be willing to do it under one financing mechanism, but another builder might be willing to build the same subdivision but need a different type of a financing mechanism. In addition to the state, the different chapters of, sub-chapters of Chapter 40 we've talked about, there are federal tax credits which are available for affordable housing. And I haven't seen any of the proposals which have come before the boards I've sat on the last 5 years which have any discussion of any of those federal tax credits to build this type of housing. So I think we just want to have maximum flexibility at setting the goal as we talked about. I also agree with your suggestion that we should defer any formal determination on the housing production plan until after we hear from the subcommittee developed by the town council. They're going to be meeting, they're going to be putting forth ideas. I think we want to hear all of those ideas before we make a determination as to whether what we have now and the suggestions we're going to get, I think we want to incorporate and discuss the suggestions made by that committee. And then finally, after all that's done, we can take a final vote on to adopt or not adopt a final product and send it back to the town council for their work, as opposed to us voting on something and then having the subcommittee start from scratch and essentially destroy everything we've done and have us to have to start over again after we get their report. I think we should just get their report or their input and move forward.
Yeah. Well said. No, that was great, Bob. Thank you very much for that. Tim?
Building on all of my board members' comments here, which I couldn't agree with more, and bringing up some very pertinent points. The only thing I think I'd like to add to build on that is I think it's important to note in the housing reduction plan, there seems to be a strong emphasis on subsidized housing, starter homes, middle, the missing middle. One important aspect of why I think the gear is clogged is senior housing and senior housing options and choices. And, there is such a lack of that market on the Cape. Aging in place has become kind of the hot new thing. Without options for seniors or empty nesters to be able to downsize, it kind of creates a clog in the gears where people will be living in a house that they did not intend to live in for so long without selling it to maybe a family who's trying to upsize, who's moving out of a starter home for somebody who's trying to buy it. It kind of clogs all the gears. And I think particularly for senior housing, having it be market rate and not tied to, subsidies and to affordable housing programs to have the maximum flexibility for people to be able to get into it. So I think that's one important area to focus on in the housing production plan, especially, going through the data in it. I think it says in 2020, 31% of our population is over 60, and it's going to be 37 or 38% by 2040. That sector of the demographic is growing. And I would echo my board members' comments that I think it makes a lot of sense to defer on this and have the housing production plan reviewed by the subcommittee and see what comments are generated there, and being able to use those to build upon it for one final working document there.
Great. Well said. Yeah, so Jim, I think it's unanimous that, we kind of direct you to work with town council leadership to let them know that we'd like this to be referred to the committee to assess and recommend strategies for housing creation within the town. And we'd like to wait and see kind of what they come up with. And as such, I think it's appropriate for us to continue this to, I think we said August 26th. Is that an accurate? Any board members object to continuing to August 26th?
Mr. Chairman, just
yes, Ray, go ahead.
one comeback.
Sure.
So I think we're on track here. I'm passionate about this. I'm not shy about saying maybe tactically it's great. Maybe we won't put a formal mark on the wall as far as what percentage of what development is labeled whatever. But as we have done in the past, and I intend to do in the future, is I want to try to create as much as possible. If they want to build it, then we can negotiate. And then there's a way around the barn on some of these things. And I'm a little more reluctant to buy some of the, if you say 25%, nobody's going to come and build. This is Cape Cod. People love to live here. Guys and people like to sell things to people that live here, and they can make some bucks, and they can also do some good. The other thing is that it seems to me, and remember I just retired from 37 years in Washington, D.C., so we've got the local comprehensive plan, and we have the planning board, and now we have the new and improved housing subcommittee, and maybe even another housing committee. We got housing things coming out of our ears. It seems to me that also we should work to coordinate this, just as an example. If the LCP is developing something on housing, perhaps it would be good to save some work for the LCP committee and simply say we're going to reference the housing production plan, so that we're not, it's all well intended, but you have the left hand, right hand coordination thing where folks may or may not be looking at the same things. Folks may be working off of different data, whatever it is. And I think as the planning board, I think it's, we have a due diligence to say, hey, this needs to be coordinated so that we're not going off in a bunch of different tangents. So my recommendation is that we also perhaps note, recommend, or whatever the proper language is, that these disparate efforts should be coordinated so that we have a one integrated town approach to affordable housing, or a housing, as Bob said, that's affordable.
Yeah, well said.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, and just to kind of go through that a little bit, the housing production plan is a big part of that, but ultimately it's the LCP that's going to be drafting a plan on this, right?
Well, so it's kind of two separate items here. So the housing production plan, as I started the conversation with, is a state requirement, and it's fairly prescribed process or document that outlines how you're going to achieve your affordable housing goals. Whereas the local comprehensive planning committee is looking at what are we going to do about housing in the town of Barnstable. So they will dovetail at a lot of them. A lot of these strategies are aligned with what the local comprehensive planning committee has produced to date. They are aware of all the strategies, and we've presented this to the local comprehensive planning committee and brought our consultants in to discuss all the different strategies. So those are integrated some. They can continue to get better in integrating. In addition, do want to just outline that we are kind of the shepherds for the plan. So it does start with the housing committee and the local comprehensive plan committee, and is moving through the process. So the housing committee and local comprehensive planning committee has offered their comments, and now this document is before the planning board with that insight. There's further insight that was provided this evening that's going to carry that forward to what sounds like the subcommittee for housing, which will provide further comment, and I will be doing this kind of presentation and explanation again to them to understand that, yes, it has been begun. The conversation has begun with local comprehensive planning committee. It has begun with the housing committee. It has begun with the planning board. Now we're interested in your insight. Bring that back to the planning board, probably bring that back to the local comprehensive planning committee. The local comprehensive planning committee is going to be talking about land use strategies for the future. So I believe that's our August upcoming meeting, where we're going to be getting to that final point of, all right, where are the actions? We've talked about all the different strategies. Now, where are we going to put that? And you drop that on a map. So that's where the local comprehensive planning committee is going to provide great insight for this document and this process. And then ultimately, with that in mind, it comes back hopefully to the planning board for adoption, and then finally to town council, where they will take in all of that input from the housing committee, the local comprehensive planning committee, the planning board, the subcommittee for housing, and hopefully come to
A partridge in a pear tree.
an agreement. Well, thank you for that. I mean, that was a good clarification that everything funnels to planning board, which then funnels to town council. So that's definitely helpful. Okay, great. So I move to continue the discussion of the you know what? I'm sorry, before I do. Is there any members of the public that would like to speak on this evening? Okay, thank you. Didn't want to move on without checking, so thank you very much. I'd like to make a motion to continue discussion here at the Planning Board of the 2024 Housing Production Plan to our meeting on Monday, August 26th.
So moved.
Thank you. And a second?
Second.
Thank you, Matt. All those in favor, Matt?
Aye.
Ray?
Aye.
Bob?
Aye.
Tim?
Aye.
And myself, Steve Robichaud, votes aye. Okay, excellent. Moving along, we are going to do our annual election of officers. Tim, would you like to lead it off?
Sure. I would like to make a motion to nominate Stephen Robichaud for chair.
I'll
Thank you.
second that.
Thank you very much, both of you. I appreciate that. All those in favor, Matt?
Aye.
Ray?
Be careful what you ask for. Double aye.
Oh, double aye. All right. Bob?
Aye.
Tim?
Aye.
And myself, Steve Robichaud, votes aye. Thank you all very much. Next, we'll have a nomination for vice chair. I move to nominate Bob Twist for vice chair. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Matt. All those in favor, Matt?
Aye.
Ray?
Aye,
Bob?
I guess.
We're going to take that as an aye. Tim?
Aye.
And myself, Steve Robichaud, votes aye. Motion passes. Congratulations, Bob. And last, Bob?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I nominate Tim O'Neill to be continue as clerk for the next year.
Excellent. Thank you very much. And do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Matt. All those in favor? Matt?
Aye.
Ray?
aye.
Bob?
Aye.
Tim?
Aye.
And myself, Steve Robichaud, votes aye. Excellent. Thank you very much. Moving along. Skip a couple pages. General correspondence. Chapter 91, notice, turn lane, Centerville. Brooks and McAuliffe, extension of pier and maintain boathouse. Jim, any staff updates or weekly recap for us?
Yeah, just real quickly, I mentioned the LCPC is working on additional chapters. While they were not able to meet towards the end of June due to some scheduling issues with town council, we do have recordings of historic preservation and the cultural heritage and design. We've asked Bob Frazee from Barnstable Historic to provide a presentation, and that's recorded and on the town's website under the barnstablelcp.com. As well as Melissa Chartrand, who's our incredible arts and culture coordinator, who does all the magic that happens all over Bismore and the artist shanties and all the great stuff, especially throughout the summer here. So great videos on Barnstable LCP if you want to catch an update there. They will meet towards the end of this month, I believe, July 25th. Where we will be diving into some goals and strategies on those chapters. In addition, working diligently on updates to those design guidelines that this board adopted a few months back. Having a working group, and thank you, Mr. Robichaud, for joining us. We've been chipping away at some of the issues that some of the members of Historic had, and I think we're getting to a pretty good spot with that. So likely going to be presenting some of the recommendations in the near future here so that we can stay on the same page. And lastly, just an update, aside from the subcommittee for housing, there is a subcommittee to assess zoning and regulatory agreements that met not this past Friday, but the previous Friday evening. And I was present at that meeting. They're looking for an update or a presentation regarding regulatory agreements. I believe that's going to be at the next meeting, which is, I believe, July 19th. It's a Friday afternoon.
Yeah, 3 p.m.
At 3 o'clock. They asked for the planning board chair to attend and join and provide insight in the perspective of the planning board. I will be providing more of like a 101 of what is a regulatory agreement and what has been passed over the years. And my understanding is then they're going to dive into other aspects such as zoning issues.
Thank you for that, Jim. And Bob, I thought your remarks tonight were really, really excellent about keeping in our back pocket the flexibility that regulatory agreements give us. We don't quite know what the future may hold and how those may be a key tool. So, feel free to submit comment to that subcommittee or attend to let your opinions be known about zoning and regulatory agreements. Any comments? Ray?
So, again, are we creating or is there being created like a shadow government that I don't understand why we already have established by charter entities to do this, and now what is the purpose of this subcommittee?
Jim, I'm going to let you take that one. I will say, town council subcommittees have been a part of our town government for many years. So it's not, completely out of the norm, but Jim, do you want to take that?
Yeah, so the mission of this specific subcommittee is to evaluate, work with the planning staff to evaluate the use of regulatory agreements and recent adopted zoning. So they will be reviewing those matters as Steve mentioned, it did get a vote of the town council to adopt these subcommittees. This one specifically has only met once, and really the two topics that have been brought up to date are discussion of regulatory agreements and looking at zoning enforcement aspects. But I'm sure there will be other items in the future.
Well, thank you for that, Jim. I'm thrilled that you yet have another set of masters to take care of in the endless days that you have, all the time you have available to you and your staff.
Thank you, Ray.
Yeah, I may recommend, if we want to reach out to the subcommittee as they progress, perhaps they come present to the planning board or something to that effect.
I think that would be great. And as I have mentioned before, let's all keep in mind the process that exists in the town, the legal process to change zoning, which is a recommendation from our board, from the planning board, to town council. And then in order for town council to enact that change, it must be a supermajority, which is 9 out of 13 votes. So let's just keep that in mind. The subcommittee is going to do its job, but we also have a very important role in zoning in our town. So.
Yes, indeed.
Okay, excellent. Thank you, Jim. Thank you, Ray. Any additional comments for Jim before we continue on? All right. Look for a motion to approve the June 24, 2024 draft minutes.
Mr. Chair, I make that motion.
Thank you very much, Tim. And a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Ray. All those in favor? Matt?
Aye.
Ray?
Aye.
Bob?
Aye.
Tim?
Aye.
And myself, Steve Robichaud, votes aye. Future meetings, July 22nd and August 12th, 2024, here at Town Hall at 7 p.m. Anything before we adjourn this evening?
I just want to note, Mr. Chairman, as at the outset you mentioned, and now at the ending, that I'm thrilled that Jim is stepping forward to assume he has the longest titles. He's, acting, interim, sort of, kind of,
This is
There's
actually
Jim with that opportunity. I'm not sure. The battle of attrition is a tough one to win, my friend.
This is actually a shorter title, interim director. That's it. Interim director. Yeah, not very concise.
Okay.
No, huge shoes to fill, and I did want to just say, for the record, how much of a loss it is for the town of Barnstable to lose Elizabeth Jenkins, and how much of an impact she's had on me personally. Jim and I have met with her, have had a meeting maybe once a month, and I have a lot of questions, and she's just been an unbelievable source of knowledge and advice and information, and definitely going to miss her. So I just wanted to thank her for everything that she's done for the town. She worked for the town for a long time, and just was a positive force for everything. So, okay. Anything else? All right. Look for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thank you, Matt. And a second?
Second.
Thank you, Bob. All those in favor? Matt?
Aye.
Ray?
Aye.
Bob?
Aye.
Tim?
Aye.
And myself, Steve Robichaud, votes aye. Meeting adjourned.